Chapter 46, Competition is Good. The head of the Sigma 234 Dairy Commission, S234DC, was the Reverend Luke Matthews. As his title suggests, he was a full-time pastor as well as a full-time pasture owner. He had two full-time occupations, which was slightly below average for the average resident of Sigma 3. The average individual on Sigma 3 held 2.43 full-time jobs. This devotion to work was common to all people on Sigma 3 who were always trying to outdo each other. Some societies are hedonistic, some are militaristic, and some, like Sigma 3, are simply competitive. In fact, a word has been coined to describe Sigma 3's society: competiticracy. Okay, and we'll try that. I gave a preliminary report of my findings on Sigmas 2 and 4 to the Reverend Matthews. A full report would come when I finished checking cows on Sigma 3, which I estimated would take 25 to 30 years. Reverend Matthews thanked me and rushed off. He said he was conducting a revival that night and needed to feed the livestock beforehand. The Royal Sigma Sushi Bar was just across the street from the Dynamic Sigma Sushi Bar. Like I said, head-to-head competition was the norm on Sigma 3. I told the hostess I was there to meet some friends, and she led me to the table where sat Stalwart, Mark, aka Mark, and Tammy, i.e. Tammy. We exchanged greetings, and I sat down. The waiter took our orders, and Tammy, i.e. Tammy, asked me, "How are things going on the cow inspection tour? It's over 200 years since we last saw you." I gave as brief as possible a recounting of my cow inspection activities to date, omitting references to any areas that later might be deemed classified by the top guns at CDC/Ace Acme. Anytime I needed to take a breath, Stalwart filled in with anecdotes from the time he and Fleetwood Jack spent traveling with me. The evening passed by quickly, and when the meal was finished, we decided to continue our conversation at a nearby coffee shop called IQ Caffeine, which was across the street from another coffee shop called Smart Ass Cup of Joe. After cups of coffee were ordered all the way around, I asked Stalwart and Mark, aka Mark, about the pharmacies to the cows convention they were attending. Stalwart answered, "Sadly enough, this may be the last one ever held." Mark, aka Mark, explained, "What's the point of being a pharmacist to the cows when there are no more cows?" They were both right. The cows had left home and they weren't coming back. Chapter 47, Cow Armageddon. What Stalwart and Mark, aka Mark, just said prompted a gloomy thought in my mind. I looked over at Tammy, i.e. Tammy, and asked, "What about the next Interstellar Dairy Queen beauty pageant and convention? Is it on its last legs also?" "It could be. We'll know more as time goes by, but all indicators are pointing downward, as in down and out," Tammy, i.e. Tammy, replied before taking a sip of Finest Colombian's finest expert export brand. "When is it scheduled?" "In 35 years on Captain Prime in the Captain star system," Tammy, i.e. Tammy, answered. I thought to myself, if all goes according to my prediction of 25 to 30 years on Sigma 3, Captain Prime might be the location of my next cow check assignment. Stalwart, attempting to change the tenor of the conversation, said as he looked over at me, "Did you know that Mark, aka Mark, was an inventor?" I replied, "I had no idea. In our time together in the Theta Buddhist system, all our conversations have been business related." "Don't be modest, honey. Tell Nick about your latest and greatest invention," Tammy, i.e. Tammy, said with a smile. "I call it Heaven's Oven. I've been working on it for the last 65 years, and my first prototype is completed. I plan to try it out when we get back to Sharpton's lair," Mark said with a touch of pride. "Well, tell me all about it." The name itself had an intriguing air. "It's a faster-than-light drone the size of a bread box, which is germane because its purpose is to bake bread. The concept is simple, but the execution is complex. You start off by mixing the ingredients of flour, water, salt, leavening agent, etc., and then placing them in a rectangular pan a little smaller than a bread box. Then you put the pan into the faster than light drone and send it in the direction of whatever star your home planet is revolving around. The drone's computerized flight path takes it around the sun and back to where it started from. Think of it, the red is baked by the most natural heat in the universe, that of a hydrogen helium-based star. That's why I call my invention Heaven's Oven. How long does it take to complete the circuit? I asked. Depends on where you are in this section of the galaxy. In the case of Earth, for instance, I would say about 20 minutes. Sharpton's layer is about 88 million miles from Theta Beta, so it would be a little bit less. How about Sigma 3? About 20 minutes, similar to Earth. I'm impressed, and to speak frankly, I think it's a good idea for all pharmacists to the cows to reconsider their career options, I said. Stalwart replied, that's exactly what I plan to say tomorrow during my speech to the cow pharmacist. We continued to visit and talk for an hour or so, and then went our separate ways. Chapter 48, Guerrilla Tactics. Intraplanet use of the SPNV was banned on Sigma 3, so I was once again relegated to my old tried and true method of travel, walking, which, when you think about it, is a better way of checking on cows. After all, as a general rule, cows don't use roads and highways as their preferred means of going from one place to another. They tend to get around by traversing pastures, forest trails, and crossing shallow streams. The best way for me to check on cows was to get around the same way they did. In that regard, I bought a new pair of boots made of draconian leather, a type of boot found only on Sigma 3. Of course, in doing so, I had to resist the sales technique of a salesman in the same store trying to sell me a different kind of boot made of material from one of Sigma 3's moons. The competition never ends on Sigma 3. I sat out on a fine and lovely morning. The day would warm up, but nothing like on Sigma 2, and the nights would be cool with a breeze coming off of the ocean. Most of Sigma 3 had a Mediterranean climate, much like Southern California did before the Democrats took control. Something was different here, unlike any other world I had been on. The dairy cattle looked healthy, not healthy like they were in the heyday of the dairy business, but healthy enough. The farmers said they were getting milk, but only about 40% of what they used to get. In conjunction with the dairy scientists at S234DC, they had tried all kinds of methods to improve dairy production, but nothing had worked. Another troubling trend was that the population of the cows was dwindling. Where were they disappearing to? My theory was that they were being stolen, but how and by whom? 2 years into my investigations, I stopped at a dairy farm owned and operated by Jim on the Beam. Jim was a nice fellow, but he was perplexed. He had been steadily losing dairy cattle for quite some time and was feeling quite helpless about it. Based on the evidence I had collected in my investigations, I had a hunch about what was really happening. Jim, I think I can stop the rustling, but I need some help, I said. Anything I can do, Mr. Nearcastle, just tell me. I'm getting desperate. Jim had the look of a man down to his last dollar. If I'm right, I'll need to have some sort of weapon. Let's go into your workshop and see what we can do. My theory was that none other than Colonel Isimo Francisco Bay of the ABC Alpha Beta Corps was rustling cows on Sigma 3 and taking them back to Sigma 4 for the purpose of feeding his troops, who were waging a bacon revolution. You might call that ironic, and you would be right. In the workshop, I asked Jim to supply me with a strap and 2 pieces of wood. While I was fashioning my weapon, I instructed him to go into the pasture and collect 20 to 25 calcified cow chips. He gave me a strange look, but did as I requested.